the Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network presents Worldview Media Podcast, where Gordon and Joyce Runyon view popular media through the lens of the biblical five-point covenant model to help believers appreciate and apply principles of exciting narrative and engaging storytelling.
It's that time again. It's that right time of the week for the Worldview Media Podcast. How long you been waiting for this? Well, it paid off because here we are.
We are your sunshine? Is that what you're saying?
My only sunshine. All right, y'all. Here we are. We are on remote location at the apartment of our middle daughter, Jordan.
Hello.
And it's her birthday.
Day. Yay!
Oh.
And we're celebrating her birthday by making her do a podcast.
So we can write it off as a business trip.
I should have had something more expensive for lunch. All right, well, here we are. We're in Las Vegas, New Mexico, and you will hear traffic noise right outside the window.
Yeah, my neighbor's yelling, maybe, possibly. It's
Maybe.
always a... Ooh, you never know.
The drama. All right, so what are we talking about this week?
What are we talking about this week?
Anybody know? Did anybody watch the movie?
What? I thought we were just like talking this week. Saying happy birthday, Jordan.
We are talking about Pride and Prejudice. Which version? The Keira Knightley.
The 2005
The most recent.
Keira Knightley and what's his name? Matthew
McFadden.
version.
Yes.
McFadden, I don't know. Who knows? No one.
And so...
Mr. Darcy.
It is kind of good that this is your birthday because this is like one of your favorite movies, right?
Yeah, it's right up there.
Okay. Well,
Even Carmen was telling me, out of all that type of stuff, that this was her favorite one too.
right.
And Reagan, whoever knows if she watches anything that we see as a family, so
Right.
she watches her own things in her head. So
Yeah, that's true enough.
When Reagan was little, how old was she when she was streaming like that?
her Barbie.
Barbie radio?
No, she was actually in her room watching like that Psycho TV show. What was that? Like
The Bates Motel.
Oh.
Yeah. She was like 12 or something, like 13. I know it was like the year before she discovered Dylan O'Brien.
And then nothing mattered after
Everything
that.
changed. Her life has never been the same.
I think I'm better with her stalking Dylan O'Brien than I am with her watching like psychopathic, bloody slasher movies.
Well, I don't think that Bates Motel was.
Yeah, it was more about the suspense.
Yeah.
I mean, there were murders.
Sure, but
But
then
that's
there's,
TV.
Yeah, that's all TV. That's not real life.
And it was shocking when I found out she was doing that. And it wasn't like she was trying to hide it either.
She would talk about it. And
She didn't feel like it was worthy of telling anybody. I was like, what do you mean you're watching this show?
No, I think I knew she was watching it, and I just thought, well, okay.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
I was a little shocked.
Well, she's...
But she does love the serial killers.
She loves serial killers. Yeah, that's true.
I mean,
She loves the true crime stories.
the drama.
And then they freak her out.
Yeah.
She's convinced she's going to be a victim.
Yeah. I can't watch most of those shows anymore now that I'm like
Living by
myself. It's like,
Walking back and forth.
walking back and forth in the dark, and because I used to, I maybe would have watched like Criminal Minds or something,
Yeah.
just because like, oh, that's a good time or
Interesting.
whatever,
Yeah.
like, but ooh, can't do it anymore.
No one wants to hear that, right?
All right, so Pride and Prejudice, one of Jordan's favorite movies. Why do you like this movie so much? Just tell why this is a great movie?
Okay. Well, I think it's a classic story, you know,
Yeah.
because it's based on the book of the same name, obviously, by Jane Austen.
Mhm.
So it's a well told little tale of miscommunication
Yeah.
and
Missed prompts with what's going on. I don't know. What's wrong
Bad
with you?
first
yeah,
impressions.
and first impressions and
Miscues, I
and
guess.
and obviously Pride and Prejudice
Oh, yes.
that comes into play.
And lots of different people.
And lots of that's true. And then
The characters are really fun. I
yeah,
think.
lots of really funny, distinct characters, like her crazy mom, and then her sort of equally crazy but in a whole other way dad,
Yeah, and then the sisters.
and then her crazy sisters,
all of them are different.
and
And dreadful cousins.
oh well, sure. And the music is really nice,
Yeah.
and I like the costuming
Mhm.
and
The
the
scenes.
cinematography,
Yeah.
and
It just all comes
it's
together very well.
yes, it's really it was really well made.
Did you feel that way about the casting? Did everybody meet up with the way you felt like they should be? I guess I'm saying the only guy that I felt was not cast super well is Darcy.
Oh really?
You like him as Darcy?
I do like him as Darcy.
I think most everybody does.
Really?
Well,
Yeah.
he's a lot of people's second favorite Darcy because of that first one with was it Colin Firth or
Oh, yeah, probably so.
but for a lot of people Colin Firth is still the only
Mr. Darcy.
Mr. Darcy. But I feel like he's really a pretty nice Mr. Darcy.
Yeah. Well, and I haven't seen the older version in a while, but I think there's a lot of differences with the family, with just the way they present themselves and with like the costuming. And,
Yeah.
But we can.
Well, it's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
I
Stayed awake.
I've watched this a few times with you. Jordan watched this like a million times, so I.
And whenever
it
it's
once
on
or twice.
TV, it's usually on the channel Oxygen,
Yeah.
if it's ever on.
And we watch
That's
it.
where it goes.
Yeah. And that's what we are. We say, oh look. Well, let's cozy in.
Oh man,
Uh,
Mom got mad at me. I was dozing off during it. When we were
Oh,
watching
now
it.
he admits it.
See, I don't think I ever actually went out, but Mom's convinced I missed half the movie. I don't really think that I did,
well, all right.
because I feel like I know the plot better now than I have after all those other times of watching
Oh.
it.
Okay.
Did you
Because
read
I was
about
like,
it?
I gotta pay attention this time. I'm supposed to podcast about this.
Sure.
The casting that I did like was the guy that played Mr. Collins,
Oh yeah.
because he manages
that's
to
really
just hit the right notes and
Yeah.
in terms
He
of
elevates the character to.
he's just kind of a brown-nosing little man.
Yeah.
And with no actual soul.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so he was good. Although he's not my favorite bad pastor in that genre. In the PBS series Poldark,
Oh yeah.
do you know that guy? The pastor that's in Poldark?
Uh,
Man, that guy is a greasy looking
I've probably.
slime ball.
He's not had a whole lot of coverage.
Turns out to be a real
I don't
perv.
know.
I'm not all caught up on.
He doesn't stand out in my
On
book.
Well, I'm just saying he's a better bad pastor, this other
Okay.
guy. But this guy
Well,
checked all the boxes.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, and I don't think. Well, but this is for later.
yeah.
We'll talk about
And
that.
from what I remember of that other one with Colin Firth, I like this Mr. Collins better than the Mr. Collins in that one. From just what I
Yeah.
recall, this guy is the better Mr. Collins, hands down. I think.
And then don't you wonder about the actors involved when so much of the dialogue is about, yes, this girl is prettier than this one here. And what if you get cast as the less pretty sister and stuff like that? Does that haunt you? Are you glad you landed that role?
I mean,
I'm the ugly one.
The homely girl. That's me.
Yeah.
I play the
I'm the
homely
one
girl.
with not many prospects because of how homely I am.
well,
or,
I mean,
or you get cast as this perv.
I think
you know,
I think as an actor, you have to be really aware of of the type of vibe that you are able to bring to
Well,
a
and I
character.
think for some actors as well, it's a challenge to want to play those more difficult parts.
Yeah.
And kind of fit into that.
Maybe
Because
so.
I feel like surely no one is more hyper aware of what they actually look like than an actor whose whole job is to be
Yeah.
filmed and
And
all
be
of
made
that
up
stuff.
and flaws
Yeah.
covered or this and that. And oh, well, let's
Yeah.
shoot it from this angle because that's more flattering or.
Yeah. Actors and probably models have to be more like conscious of those
But
things.
do they have to have a realistic image of themselves, or do they have to be just a little inflated so it fills them with confidence and stuff like that?
I think it would be hard because everybody's picking at anything.
Yeah.
Oh, you've gained too much weight and you haven't really gained anything, or you've lost too much weight. And
Yeah, or you can't. We have to recast this role because you're getting too old now, and
Yeah.
you can.
You can't try for these parts anymore because,
Yeah. Yeah, because I remember, I don't know where she was talking, but I remember hearing Meryl Streep say something about how at one point in her career, she was looking at all the scripts that she was getting, and she realized that like she had these 5 scripts, and they were all 5 parts for a witch, and she was like,
I see.
I see that things have changed.
Sure, I've been a bad character, but yeah.
for like witches and old women, and she's
Yeah.
like, oh well.
I have arrived. But, you know, I think that's just part of having a healthy perspective about yourself and your mortality. Because we are all aging and we're all getting older, and some people get that and deal with it gracefully, and some people try to cling and hold on to, no, I'm not this old.
Right.
I'm going to wear the trendy kid clothes, and my hair will never have a gray streak in it, and so.
Yeah. All right. And so this movie features as a star Keira Knightley as young unmarried Elizabeth Bennet, and
Well, she's not really young.
Well, she is young.
probably what, early 20s,
She's probably
mid 20s.
about 21 or 22, maybe just 20.
But in the movie, is her character that old? Or a
Well,
little
no,
older?
that's about how old Elizabeth is supposed to be.
That's what I was thinking. Early
Probably
20s.
Keira Knightley is a little older than that,
Yeah.
playing the role.
All right, and what would you say? She's not really bucking the system so much. It's like she accepts what the system is, where she needs to find a husband. And,
Right.
And given the right husband, she would be excited about it and happy.
Yeah.
But she does seem to kind of be bucking the system in terms of setting her standards higher than most people would, or something like that. Or having a narrow definition of what she would be willing to
That's probably
pursue
true.
or something.
She's probably kind of picky. Whereas I
A little
feel
bit
like
more picky. Yeah.
her sisters probably are very much less picky, especially the younger sisters.
Yeah.
So Elizabeth is maybe more independent-minded. Is that how you would?
I think that's the typical interpretation.
Of her
Okay.
character.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But she's not really trying to break out.
No,
of-
I feel like she's pretty comfortable with the whole idea of like, okay, yeah, I have to go and get married and all of that stuff, but she's wanting a specific type of thing
Right.
that has not presented itself.
And she's willing to wait on
Yeah.
that. Or,
She's not
Willing to
worried about
roll the
like
dice.
becoming an old maid or something, and if
Yeah.
that were to happen, she's like, well, hey, that's what happens then.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, anything else we need to say about this movie in terms of general?
Well, I think Jordan and I both give it a solid A.
Solid A.
Yeah, solid A.
It's not an A+? I thought this was your favorite movie.
Oh, well, it is a favorite movie of mine.
So A+.
Well, in my class that I'm teaching, I'm not doing pluses or minuses.
It's just solid.
It's just A's, B's, C's,
Or,
or
too bad.
Or too
Oh,
bad. I guess I would
What
give
are you,
it.
are you big timing us here? You've grown out of pluses and minuses.
It's only good in
All the little people use pluses and minuses.
Well, you
Some
know.
places it doesn't matter what your average is. It's an A,
Yeah.
which is kind of sad for those of us who exceed just the regular A.
Okay. I guess it would be an A+.
As you do in every area of life.
I never said me.
You said those of us,
Right.
Like Jordan.
but us is inclusive.
Like your father. All right, so not your father.
I would give it an A+.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, very good. So it checked all the boxes for you then.
Yeah.
All right, and you're a solid A, you're A+.
It's a high A.
If I had to sit and watch a chick flick, and sometimes I have to, this is not terrible. No, not terrible. It's good. It's perfectly fine.
What? Not terrible, good, perfectly fine?
Wholly adequate.
Wholly adequate, Captain.
Is that a C for wholly adequate?
Yeah,
Or
C+.
fine is a B or...
C+.
Oh. You didn't like the cinematography, the costuming,
It was pretty.
the music?
It was pretty. The music is very good. The movie's a C+. It's less than the sum of its parts.
Well, some people would stay awake and actually watch the whole movie.
Well, see, that's their fault. They weren't able to hold my interest.
No, I think that's
well.
your fault because you were sitting down.
I must watch standing up. All right. Well, if that's it, then we will take our break and move along to the really meaty part of the show where we will talk about, what do we talk about? Meaning, messages, morals.
Yeah.
I almost ripped that off from somebody. Sounded good though. All right, so we'll be back in just a bit.
The Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network brings to you a complete lineup of podcasts where you will hear practical and tactical theology. Our desire is not simply that you consume our shows, but that you also live out your faith in every area of life. We can talk all day long about these things, but if we fail to put them into practice, then we fail as ambassadors of Jesus Christ, our King. Subscribe now to your favorite Reconstructionist Radio Podcast Network shows, or you can subscribe to the Reconstructionist Radio Master Feed, where all of the content we produce, including the audiobooks and audio articles, will pop up as soon as they are available. And don't forget to visit reconstructionistradio.com to volunteer as a narrator or to partner with this ministry financially. May the Holy Spirit stir you into action for Christ and His kingdom.
Here we are back at the Worldview Media Speedway and International Freeway Hub.
What? The racetrack? Is that what you're saying?
The Autobahn goes right under the apartment.
Well,
And I'm just happy for the freedom. These guys just open it wide and go. There's nothing jerky about that at all. All right, so we're talking about Pride and Prejudice, talking about worldview issues, underlying thematic messages.
yeah.
Everything is preaching to you all the time.
All the time.
And now, what is Pride and Prejudice preaching to you?
Well, what did it preach to you?
I go last. I get to ask the question. So give me a theme.
I think if you just look at the status of women in this and the time, and you really had no options, you were to be married or you were to be a burden. And either way, you're kind of a burden.
Yeah.
You're either a burden to the man you married, or you're
You just
a burden.
hope that you marry someone who's good, good for it, who can
Yeah. Who
carry
gets
that.
enough pounds of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that was something that I think most parents now of little girls don't view them in that way. And I certainly think from a Christian perspective, girls aren't a second-class citizen. They're not lesser than.
Shouldn't be. Ideally, that would be true.
Well, I think in God's perspective, that's the case.
Yeah, right.
The reality of the situations may be different, but that was something that really, and especially as a mom of 3 girls, they have more options than what were available at that time. And sure, yeah, probably most people want to get married and have their own families and their own little households and set all that stuff up, and that's fine and good, but you don't have to do that. You don't have to rely on somebody else to take care of you.
Yeah, I feel like the thematic statement of the whole movie was the scene where Elizabeth is on the swing and her friend shows up,
Yeah.
and Elizabeth has just turned down a marriage proposal from Reverend Collins,
Yeah.
The dreadful cousin.
the dreadful Reverend Collins, and her friend is there to tell her that she's engaged to marry him now.
Mhm.
So he got over the disappointment of the no pretty
Yeah.
quickly,
Yeah.
moved on,
Picked himself up.
right, dusted off, and now he's ready to go, and they're getting married, and Lizzie was stunned and mortified to hear that she's actually going to marry this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And her response was, "No, you don't get to judge me because you don't understand. You don't understand how fearful I am and how terrifying it is for me, and I'm out of options." And that just seemed to be kind of a thematic thing for me in terms of dealing with the status of women in this story. That a lot of what they were doing was motivated by fear. Now, not all of it was, though. I mean, throughout the movie, the Bennett women
Uh-huh.
are pictured enthusiastically moving forward in this process.
Yeah.
They know what the game is, they know what winning looks like,
Yeah.
and they're gonna
They got all the moves.
and they're happy to participate.
Yeah.
And now I think one thing for me was that Mrs. Bennett she's obviously a comic foil, and she's there for comic relief, and we laugh at her.
Yeah.
But honestly, if you're in that situation and you've got those 5 daughters whose only hope is to marry a rich guy.
Yeah.
Well, it's to be married, period.
Yeah,
Hopefully
but
well.
hopefully
yeah.
a rich guy. And then you can understand her fanaticism
Yeah.
in the whole thing. And who would not be that kind of fanatic if that's really what the game is?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Well,
I feel
but
like
with the mom, I think she's kind of let down her job with her daughters because they didn't have a governess. She didn't spend any time with them working on social
lady
skills
things.
and how to behave properly.
Yeah.
And
They've
that's
never
a whole big
attended
thing.
a season
Yeah.
or anything.
They don't go to town. They don't draw. They don't do a lot of things. And she's the lady of the manor, but she's not doing anything. None of them are doing anything.
She's not giving them the advantages.
Yes, that they should, especially with the status that they have. They're not having to go out and work and take care of things and bring, to provide for themselves. So I really felt like the mom was not a good example for them either.
Yeah.
When the officers were coming to town
Yeah.
and they're just all, ooh, the officers, and the mom's hopping right in with all that and
Right.
being more of a compatriot than as a guide and someone to help them where they are having issues, where they've got faults, and helping to strengthen those things. And that she just that wasn't her. Yeah, she wanted them to get married and she wanted them to have a good home, but I didn't see her. You don't see her actively helping them to do that.
Right. Well, there was another another illustration of the bad status of women there is just what you were talking about in this movie, the commonly accepted activities that a young woman needed to be competent at. And they all would fall under the category of making them better window dressing. There's nothing terribly productive.
Yeah.
But they're going to make it maybe more pleasant to live in the house, or because they can play nice music or crochet neat things, or or draw things that are neat to look at. But it's all just that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not denigrating art.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I think even in the process of learning those things and doing those things, you learn some self-discipline.
Well, maybe.
You learn, I've got to work harder at this. I need to improve. And you do learn some things even through those
sure, but
activities.
I'm saying that when that's the category you're expected to major in, that's part of reinforcing this whole system.
Yeah.
Because the woman that's all she can do. She's going to have to find a man to support her. And then there was a place where Mrs. Bennett finds out one of her daughters has gotten engaged, and one of her exclamations of joy is, "We are saved!"
Yeah.
We're marrying this guy who has some money. That's going to be, they're saved now because they've hooked onto this guy, and it kind of makes the point that we've been making at Reconstructionist Radio for a long time, and that's that it's easy, and it's historically easy in the history of the world, and especially pagan cultures, to objectify women and make them things like window dressing and neat little toys that you collect or something like that. But in this movie, even though that is clearly pictured, that's a thing. It goes the other way too, which we've also been trying to point out, is that the women are involved in this. And just as much as the men are objectifying them, they are objectifying the men. And the men become targets. And they're not people anymore.
Yeah, they're salaries and stuff.
They're opportunities.
Yeah.
Friend of the podcast, Susanna Roundtree, had an awesome statement in one of the Monstrous Regiment shows. She said, it's hard to be friends with people when you're trying to collect their heads. And talking about the fact that sometimes single Christian women are under so much pressure to find that man that they wind up kind of in the same position where now they're just casting about, and maybe they're willing to start lowering their standards at some point just to take any guy that comes along. And every man that they are introduced to who might be eligible, he's not so much a person to get to know and be friends with, but he's a potential target, if not an actual target. So I thought that was clear throughout the movie. You see that interchange or interplay between both sides, treating each other as objects, and what can you do for me?
Yeah.
How can you advance my cause, whether you're male or female?
I don't know if I really saw that so much from the daughters as I did the mom, looking at him as, oh, this is the one, he's got to be here for one of my girls, and it's got to be this one because she's the oldest and she's the prettiest. And I don't think that Jane.
No, I think Jane really liked Bingley because
of who he is.
Yeah.
It wasn't that, had he not had all that money and she'd had all the opportunity
Yeah,
to
if he
meet
had
him.
been some farmer boy or something, she still would have been like, oh, hi.
She still would have been okay with him.
Yeah.
Well, there were exceptions, but I'm thinking of that scene where the
oh.
armies and the militias marching by, and how giddy all the girls were. It's like it's raining men.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. Let's see. Any other thematic things or issues provoke your thinking here?
I thought it was interesting that these people are making exclamations of love. I love you. When what did they know about this other person? How did they know them? what were they basing their
Right.
I want to marry you thing about? Because they really, you don't see them doing a lot of interaction. You see them like dancing and, well, you're pretty and you're cute, but I don't know what all that was really based on.
Yeah.
So it was interesting, especially between Darcy and Elizabeth, because he just really seems to find everybody in contempt. And maybe that's just, he never had any social training to know how to
a little
behave.
awkward.
You know, I don't know,
Right.
because to look at him, I mean, he didn't smile.
Yeah.
He wasn't.
He comes off real austere and sour.
He wasn't
and-
engaging with people. He wasn't talking to anybody. He's kind of closed off and self-contained. And I'm here, but I'm here, and you all are here with me, but I'm alone pretty much, and I'm okay with that because I don't know you. And you know, it's like Elizabeth says, oh, and you can't talk to somebody at a dance to get to know them. You know, so I think it's easy going into situations where you feel uncomfortable to remain closed off, and you really need to practice overcoming those things.
Yeah. All right. We have somebody being murdered outside, apparently.
No.
That's why I can't watch anything here.
Can't even look outside.
Don't want to know.
Well, y'all probably have seen this and thought about it more than me. Maybe you can recall it. I'm hoping you can, or this bit of time is going to be really bad radio, worse than normal. There's a scene at one of the dances that they're at where it's still when Darcy and Lizzie don't really like each other very much. And they're verbally jousting.
Yeah.
And Lizzie has a hot take that poetry can be very damaging to love.
Oh yeah.
And
Because it'll just
he's
use
like,
up
well,
everything.
see, that's what I want to ask you about, because I am not sure I understood her point. And Darcy was like, oh, I thought poetry was the wellspring of love.
Yeah.
Or added great fuel to love.
Yeah.
She's like, no, it'll kill it.
Well, she
And-
says only if it's a good stout love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so explain to me what her take was. How is poetry dangerous to love?
Well,
At least in her view.
I think she was going for something like, because I think she says something, if it's like a faint inclination and you write all this poetry about it, then like, well, that was just about all it had in it, was just enough to write these poems. And now that the poems are done, it's like, well, that was it.
I guess I got it all down on paper.
And
I'm
it's
done.
over now.
Yeah.
That's how I always understood what she was talking about. Because then if you were in the fine, stout love, then you
Yeah.
had plenty of love to be like thinking about and exploring in different ways with the
Well, and
poetry.
sometimes that poetry can just be really silly. You know,
Yeah.
it can just be really. You know, I just think of the song for Harry when he's getting his
Oh.
Valentine, and it's, you know, it's
Yeah.
expressing stuff, but it's very silly things and not very.
Yeah.
There's not much depth to them.
And
It's
then
real
I guess
shallow.
the other side of that is that not even just for the person who writes the poetry based on like not really enough of a thing, like the person who receives that poetry, if they were like thinking, oh yeah, I could maybe like you, but then they get this poem and it's just kind of silly and stuff, and then they're like, well,
Come on.
that was
It was a good
okay. It
idea.
kind of spoils
Yeah.
the giver in the eyes of the receiver a little
Yeah.
bit, because they're like, oh, that,
maybe not.
That was stupid.
Yeah.
I can never think of you the same way again.
Yeah. I think that's.
So I
probably
think
right.
those are the two sides of that equation.
Yeah.
Okay, well then it reminds me of a song that was popular years ago, and I don't know if you'll remember it, but it used to be played so often that it was just sickening. It's Delilah.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that song?
Yeah, I know
And
that
everybody
song.
was so impressed with what a amazing, just simple but very romantic love song this was, where the guy was singing to Delilah and about how their love would change the world, just their love. And stuff like that. And then the only time I ever saw him interviewed is he had already broken up with that girl. Was about.
I heard a crazy story about that song where it was like he had met her while he was on a trip somewhere and they had spent a little time together. But then it turned out he tried to get in contact with her later and she was like married and I don't know, it was this whole crazy thing and she like wanted to sue him for writing and publishing this song because it's like now everybody knows and it's just
That's kind of crazy.
it was a whole crazy thing.
Huh.
Well, and so now anytime somebody does play that song again, you can't help but hear the end of the story, you know, in your head, and now the song is just stupid.
Yeah.
Well, it was stupid to begin with. I always hated it, but to hear the rest of the story means you can never just enjoy that song again.
Yeah.
Is that kind of point?
It's been ruined by.
Well, I think if you look at a lot of lyricists, they're just snapshots of a time, the same way with a photograph. So if you had a photograph of you with this person, then what, you're just gonna burn it or cut them out of the picture? Because, I mean, that's just kind of silly.
Yeah, right.
Like the moment is still what it was.
Yeah, and so maybe it didn't work out the way you thought, but it's still a moment and it's still something obviously she remembers as well. You know, so I don't know. I think that's a little too much.
Well, during the Enlightenment, Neoplatonism was revived, and the Plato folks never quite knew how to deal with women, and they never dealt with them well, and they generally always treated them like property, and at the worst, it was you needed a wife in order to bear your children, but you know, in the extreme examples, you need a wife to bear your children, but if you're just wanting to have some good sex, then what you need is a young man or a mistress or something like that. And that all stems from the root of this pagan philosophy, and I think you see remains of that in that period of time and the world that Jane Austen is reflecting. She didn't create that world so much as just
that's just what she
talk about it. And but there's Neoplatonic false views of women, unbiblical views of women throughout. And the sad thing is, most of the women that were buying into it, they just accepted it as this is the way it is.
Well, if your culture tells you this is the way things are, and most people say, well, I guess that's the way things are.
Yeah, and that's still, it still works that way because as Reconstructionist radio has been trying to fight the good fight and promote equality, biblical equality, and get rid of unbiblical views of patriarchy and stuff like that, it's as many women fighting against that as men, and it's kind of been educational to watch some of that happen.
Yeah.
And these are women who generally have orthodox views on everything and are on the right side of the ethical judicial line in things like abortion and homosexuality or immigration, but suddenly when it comes to them needing to obey their husbands like they're rulers of the household, suddenly they've bought into the line that that's right, that's what I do, and it's dangerous for y'all to be talking about what, this horror, men and women being equal partners, how can you, you know.
Oh my.
Equality for us would be a step up for me, I'm telling you.
I was thinking, equality.
Oh, a new concept.
Don't be getting any big ideas, smart boy. Know your place, man. All right. Any other damage we can do on this topic, or what's going on?
I think if you just look at the family, that they're really, I don't know how traditional they are for their time period. I don't think that they are.
I think they're an eccentric family.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
they're.
That's right.
And I think
They're
that is
normal.
on purpose.
Yeah.
Rushdoony has pointed out several times that in cultures like that, it's almost always true that the lower classes and the poorer people maintain better standards of morality than the aristocracy and the landed classes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's really, as people aspire to rise up and be, I'm gonna transcend my current class and move up the social ladder, they start to see what the people at the top are doing, and it winds up corrupting their own morals down here. And
Yeah.
apparently there was a time when drunkenness among the lower classes was pretty rare, but it became a thing to see. It was just a thing that everybody understood, is that in the king's court, where all the really important people were, they're just drunk all the time. They're just drinking and
Because they don't have to do anything.
having sex parties all the time. And this is just what powerful people do. It's what important people do, is just drink to excess and the sex stuff and all of that. And so people who are aspiring to improve their own lot in life, suddenly that's part of that. We gotta, Rushdoony points out there used to be this slang term that was common about being drunk as a lord.
Yeah.
And that's where that came from. Where look at me, I'm a big man because I got drunk like a lord,
Yeah.
And
Well, but the Bennett family I think they're in good standing in their community. They're an elevated family.
I have a feeling their situation was that they were probably surviving more on reputation than on actual wealth. Like maybe their wealth had been slowly diminished or something.
Yeah, I kind of get that
They
feeling.
were a
I think.
respectable old house or old family, but
Yeah.
it's all going away.
Yeah, because they do have like a cook and they have a couple of
Yeah.
maids and
Yeah.
They're-
But there's not a big pretense about this is,
Yeah.
I think the girls' dresses, they're nice, but they're plain.
yeah,
They're not threadbare, but they're
not the latest fashions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Y'all said you liked all the casting and all the characters and stuff, and I know this is the wrong section to talk about this, but I could not stand the giggling little sisters.
Oh, that's the whole point of them.
No,
though.
but I hate them. Wherever, any scene that they're in, I think they ruin the scene, and they're too much. And I was
That was the whole
noticing,
point.
especially at the
Yeah.
first, that any scene that they're in, I can't hear what they're saying. I can't hear what anybody else is saying, and they're just constantly got this fingernails on chalkboard sort of laughing going
Yeah.
on all the time.
Yeah,
I really hated
that's
that. I
true.
thought that was a bad choice. Unless you're not just making irritating characters, you're making an irritating movie at some point because of these characters.
Well, I guess I could see that.
See, but some parents should have done something somewhere along the line.
Right.
For them to get to that point and still be like that.
Yep.
So-
Failure of parenting there,
Yeah.
for sure.
But yeah, I still like it. I like it I think it's a good movie. There's no extreme profanities. There's no.
There's no nudity.
Yeah,
or-
there's
no
a couple
violence.
of paintings though that are prominent. in the
Oh
movie.
yeah, the classic art.
Yeah, and the sculptures.
Yeah.
Look out for the art.
Watch out for those nude marble sculptures.
But I guess there is some nudity, but they're not real people, so maybe it doesn't matter. So, but it has a nice end.
What does the nude sculpture?
Well, I guess they'll have to decide for themselves.
Well, you could say that it was pretty well sculpted.
The movie has a nice end.
All right. Well,
Surprisingly well for a family that's crazy.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll work out okay for us too.
Yeah, it gives us hope. All right. Very good. Well, Jordan, happy birthday.
Oh, thanks.
This is the last time we'll talk about a movie that you like.
All right.
Till your birthday next year. We'll be back.
All right. We'll see y'all. Until next time. 3, 2, 1. Dominionize.
Oh, wait, do it again.
No, I'm not gonna.
I was like, what is it?
I'm not gonna.
What are we gonna say? What are we gonna
say?
say?
Anything good in my life, y'all ruin.
But look at the joy you give us.
All right, till next week, y'all.
3. Come on.
You know, you're gonna do the countdown.
No, you do it.
3, 2, 1.
Dominionize.
Dominionize.
Yay.
Oh, that was so lame. All right. Next time, y'all. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Worldview Media Podcast. Please visit reconstructionistradio.com to check out the other podcasts in our network and to download our free audiobooks.